How are y'all doing? Happy PorcFest? Yeah. So thanks for coming out. It's Wednesday. This session, noon to 2, is Eroding the Police State. From the left, we got Jacob Crawford, our buddy from Oakland. He's been active. I mean, he'll tell you a lot about what he's been up to, but active with Cop Watch out there for over a decade and really been at the front of some efforts for accountability out that way. Antonio Buehler, who's one of the founders of Peaceful Streets. He'll bring a lot of knowledge to this conversation. Ademo Freeman, the founder of Cop Block, and myself. I've just been involved with Cop Block for a while, but the topic is eroding the police state, so I just thought maybe we just offer a few thoughts ourselves, maybe share a little bit of our journeys and how that's impacted where we're at, and then hopefully have an open conversation and, sort of learn from each other and crowdsource some stuff and just kind of figure out how to get from here, like assuming that most of us here prefer liberty to coercion, like how to get to a reality where liberty is the norm. So how can we best do that, work together? There's a lot of smart folks here, and we have different comparative advantages, and we bring different ideas to the table. So that's what I'm hoping to get from the conversation. So I don't know, anybody want to kick it off?
You want to go first, Jacob?
All right, let's go right to left. Hey, you guys, my name's Jacob. Let's see, I guess I started watching the police in 2000. I started with a group called Cop Watch, and it's been a very crazy journey, and it's pretty exciting to be sitting in a room today with other like-minded people and to see a movement that's grown so much since the first days that I started. I remember when we used to go out. Sorry. Well, let's just put it this way. I think one of the most impactful and the most meaningful things for me doing this has been to watch people that otherwise were likely going to go to jail and changing that situation. I haven't seen police accountability really take place, and maybe we're going to talk about eroding the police state today, but I do know that my presence has made a difference. And so if anything else, you guys should all know that being out there does stand for something. Having a camera and supporting people can change the whole difference between somebody's outcome. So,
my name is Antonio Buehler. I had been an activist for a couple years when New Year's Day 2012 came upon me, but I never had engaged in police activism. I had been a supporter of the Innocence Project, and I acknowledged that there were major issues with the justice system. But on New Year's Day, I got arrested and charged with a felony that I didn't commit. And fortunately for me, I had someone cop watching, a guy across the street who just randomly pulled out his cell phone and videotaped it. And that took me from a position where there was a very good chance I could have spent some serious time in prison to being able to go on the offensive against the Austin Police Department. And because of how the story played out and my background and the circumstances of the stop and the video, I was able to get a lot of support that I don't know if anyone ever gets when they face the police. And we thought that at that time it would be a good idea to channel the energy of all these people who typically don't care about police abuse, like rich white conservatives or establishment Democrats, whatnot. And so we launched Peaceful Streets, and we actually use a lot of the tactics of Cop Block and Cop Watch and other police accountability organizations, and we just tried to create as much turmoil for the police as possible in an attempt to try to change the culture. And so that's what we're trying to do with the Peaceful Streets Project. We're trying to help erode the police state by changing the way people feel about the police, how they view the police and whatnot. I can talk more about that later.
Yeah, so I'm Ademo Freeman. In 2010, I founded copblock.org, and Pete, from the beginning, basically, has been there and helped make it what it is today as well. I did that primarily to highlight my experience as a victim of the war on drugs and how I've had interactions with police and how I felt after those interactions. But it quickly evolved to a decentralized organization that it is today, where just to be a hub of where folks can share information and particularly about the police state, and what we're going to talk about here in a little bit, eroding it. And so check out Cop Block for more, and we'll see. I think there's like 4 basic ways to break it down, and I think we'll get into it pretty good, and hopefully y'all have a bunch of questions, because I feel that's the most important stuff, is trying to, feed whatever information you guys need. So it's all about info.
Thanks, Ademo. So my name is Pete Eyre, and just been involved with Cop Block. I think the topic is of eroding the police state. How do we get from here to there? For me, I think it's most revolves around like ideas, and it really, I guess, underscores everything these guys have already said. But just getting away from the fear that the police state relies on everything, and just like being empowered, knowing that you're not doing anything wrong, even though someone might say you're doing something illegal. It's like the difference between what's man-made, or what you know is in yourself to be right or whatever. So acting according to your conscience, irregardless of what some folks are saying. So once you're able to move past that fear, and we're support each other, those kind of things, I think ideas are the best way to share, to make that happen, to make that the norm. So as we remove the fear, and then people realize better ways to provide this good or service of safety, then we'll erode the police state. So it's one mind at a time. So,
right. Yeah. Could you give your opinion of your definition of what the police state is? So we're talking about eroding what? What is your definition of the police state?
I mean, me personally, to try to set a definition like the police state, what we have today is a police state. A certain number of people will say, yes, I agree, or I disagree, as compared to maybe a decade ago or whatever. So then at what point do we say that a police state was reached? I would say anytime you allow for a double standard to exist, to say me and my group of friends have a right to steal your money to then protect you. Anytime you set up that double standard, the perverse incentives are there for that institution to never to provide justice and to never be accountable. And so I believe that once we live in an environment where everyone realizes they govern themselves and we police each other, and there's no such things as sovereign immunity and all these other legal fictions, then the police state will be gone.
Yeah, to me, the police state is, it's like they've got the big words in bold print, and they've like got a few the small print, and it's like police of the state is what it is. And so like when the police state is once the service of protection, which is what we're talking about here, is the service that folks can provide of protection, since it's monopolized and by the government, then it's a police state for the government, essentially. And so they're no longer concerned with providing the service of protecting people, but actually the highest payer right now, which is the only payer, the government. And so that's what I define a police state as. I don't know if anybody else has any questions. I think that'd be a good way to start if you guys are good with it. If anyone has some questions, then we probably roll in. Go ahead.
Do you see an increase in the number of people getting victimized by the police state actually helping raise awareness? Because it seems to be a lot more people have stories like that, like I wasn't doing anything and they beat the car out of me. You see people accidentally sort of joining the cause because the police make them join the cause.
Yeah, I think they're our biggest recruits, and I wish that we didn't have these movements, but at the same time, like I said, I remember a point where it was just like Cop Watch, and now we have these other groups that are doing the same thing. We're out there, we're trying to make a situation better. And I don't know.
The best volunteers that we've had have been the ones who've been victimized by the police, and they're the ones who are most thankful that there are groups like this out there, because otherwise it's just them against society. They think that because they've been arrested, everyone assumes that they're guilty, and sadly that's the way that it is. But once they realize that there are groups out there willing to fight, they become our best advocates, our best supporters. I also think that the proliferation of new technologies has helped expose a lot of the police abuse. And I think that because the police have grown so much, they're running out of homeless people and black people and Hispanic people to go after. And now they're going after middle-class, rich white people as well. And Will Grigg wrote a great essay that said, we're all niggers now. And his point was, it's not just black people who are getting attacked anymore, and in a way that is beneficial, because when it was a tiny subset of the population, it's really easy for a lot of people to say, well, that's not my problem.
Yeah, I think I don't know if I misunderstood Larkin's question or not, but I have an experience of like being in jail with victimless crime people who actually believe they belong in jail, and so I've also been surprised that police brutality and lack of accountability has been a problem ever since policing has started. And so, there's been a lot of folks who have been victimized, and I just sometimes find it surprising that something like the things that we're all involved with up here haven't been started sooner, or that they aren't more active. So there are times where I hear people who talk to me about interactions they've had with the police, and they just chalk it up to how life is, or that's what the police do. And that is very alarming. But on the flip side of that coin, thanks to the internet and the things that Jacob and Antonio just mentioned, I just moved to Laconia like a month ago, and I was at a convenience store, and a guy seen my sweatshirt, and he's like, "Oh, Cop Block, I seen that like 4 months ago, changed my life." And so I guess, like Jacob said, the police are the biggest recruits for making people out there who are wondering why these things happen to them. And even though there is an alarming rate, in my opinion, that justify it as like, oh, I'm a victimless crime person, I should be in jail, or you shouldn't have those things done, or you should have those things done to you, or people who like attack us for filming them. I've had people spit on or like ridiculed like while you're filming other police officers who could harm them. But it's still encouraging to get like those other interactions where folks are like, I realize they're not alone. I think they chalk it up to that because that's a lot of other people want or tell them to feel about it, and they don't realize that there are a lot of other people that are just like them. I mean, I've always said that if jails would just realize like how many of them are in there for nothing and decide they'd want to leave, they could leave at any time because they have the numbers, but they justify it in their minds. They're content with it at the moment. So outlets like the ones we're all involved with are pretty cool to help with that.
Yeah, and to buttress all this, I would just say that connecting with others, like one reason that Cop Block's been able to have such a reach is that it's decentralized. So there's a bunch of groups, and it's at least just people in certain areas connecting, and it's a platform for people to share their incidents and support each other and make known wrongs that happened and try to get some accountability, and point to the individual and not just label a whole association of individuals, the whole agency, as being the aggressor. So like those are things that have been really beneficial. So I don't know, connecting with people around you is key, and supporting each other. There's a lot of we could talk about the technology that allows for that. I mean, there's a lot of cool applications that already exist or that are coming out just for people to communicate and sort of like be able to have each other's back more quickly and efficiently. But
sure, numbers game. But any other questions?
Yeah, I'll save you guys the whole story, but I was recently stopped and detained illegally by the Border Patrol, 90 miles from the border. And I was wondering, I felt like my rights were violated. I got paperwork from the supervisor that I could fill out and mail to the Department of Justice to file a complaint. I have officer names, I have a timeline. What else can I do to make them accountable for what they did to me?
Were you in El Paso?
I was in White Sands, New Mexico.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if some folks here know, but like there's like checkpoints that are like not on the border or that roads that don't even cross border. Most people probably here are aware, but I assume that's one of them that you're talking about.
I'm a U.S. citizen. I've never even left the country. I have no passport. I was driving from California to Indiana, and I did not expect this checkpoint. It came out of nowhere, and it was a full 90 miles from the border. I made sure to ask them, where's the border? It's 90 miles away. And I've seen the YouTube videos before of checkpoint refusals, and I thought they would just wave me through, and it ended up being a bigger deal than that. They ended up asking me a lot of questions, and then at the point that I refused to answer their questions and invoked my Fifth Amendment rights, then they got the dog out and did their thing.
Did you video it?
They videoed me, actually.
You should get that. You should get that video.
Yeah, I don't know much about those. That procedure, how successful it'll be. I haven't had much success with like the government giving me all the information to incriminate themselves, but it just doesn't happen too often. But highlighting in whatever way, and like Cop Block is one outlet where like copblock.org/submit is where people can share their stories, and maybe you don't have video, or it's not like a slam dunk one of some of the more pinnacle cases over the last year, but it's at least letting others know, like we were talking about before, that that you're not alone and that other people are there. And I really encourage people to share like every interaction they have when they're pulled over or talking with police or whatever it is. So that would be one outlet, like outside of the usual system. But I don't know if someone wants to touch on the other way.
Yeah, I have nothing to say about the system because I don't think that people typically will ever get any justice out of the system. And so I think that a lot of people up here, if not all of us, and encourage finding different ways to get justice. And maybe for you, that doesn't mean that you ever are made whole in your situation, but you can go out and expose what they're doing, support other people who are exposing what they're doing, embarrassing them for their tactics, and in a roundabout way, that's your way of finding justice.
Yeah, every single time we've spoken out about an incident like the Chalk the Police or Mississippi, and every time we're highlighting these cases that happen against us, other people come out of the woodwork. Like 5 years ago, that same officer did this to me, or this new officer in this area is doing that, and like I spoke out because you spoke out. And so, if you share your story even just on a Facebook post, you never know if another one of your friends would say, that happened to me and this happened to me, and you can start building like a timeline or be more effective in the future of, oh, well, that happened to me, camera, or, something like that.
I'd honestly, even because I'm not worried about changing the system, but I will submit a request just to get the contradiction to lies and be able to highlight that, you know what I mean, or show it. So
yeah, there's definitely value in that. Like even if you file a freedom of information request, which would probably be what you would have to do, they deny it maybe for some reason, but you could show the lack of accountability even within their own rules of not wanting to share the transparent information. Even though they filmed you, they're not going to give you the video.
I think part of eroding the police state is convincing people that the police state doesn't give a damn about you and there's no way to get justice through it. And so why even support the system at all? I don't want to reduce the police state to a comfortable level. I want to get rid of it because at no point is it going to ever serve us.
And primarily that's why I advocate at Cop Block to say, people's like, how do you get police accountability? How do you get police accountability? And I'm like, well, you don't. Not in this system ever at all. Not once will you ever have, a true accountability. And it won't be until the market allows us to have, the government no longer having a monopoly on protection. And so, once you can tell the, New Hampshire State Police that I'm going to fund your competitor and not you really won't get any accountability. It's just like any other business that I'm sure operates under, market signals. But the police don't do that.
Yeah, and again, to go back, one example is creating the parallel institutions, providing that good or service, through voluntary interaction. So if people want to be safe and whatever most folks do, and they think they can't maybe handle themselves for whatever reason, or they have a high risk occupation or whatever, they can contract that out, and there could be different services set up. So earlier this year, I went on a quick Cop Block tour, and I stopped in Detroit and met this dude named Dale Brown, and he recognized what he saw was in the mid 90s, the Detroit PD, these folks who subsist on money taken from others under the claims of protecting them, of never responding when called, and just being apathetic and not encouraging people to take a more proactive self-defense or whatever approach. But so he said he started with a rifle and a dog, and he started this company called the Threat Management Center. So it's sort of like the Guardian Angels monetized. So he now has a big facility, and he has 500 business clients and 1,000 homes that are upscale. And then with that extra revenue, he's able to do a lot of volunteer stuff. He and his folks used to ride with truckers that were getting truck jacked or whatever, or they stay with ladies who some guy maybe was making threats against. They might stay with the lady with a rifle and sort of make sure nothing happens, things like that, but a lot of just patrols and things. But anyway, so this is an example of this good being supplied voluntarily, and it could be definitely done elsewhere. And there's a lot of potential, so we'll see where it goes. It's starting.
And I think there's a lot of proof to that in videos that we've all shot where cops will tell us, well, I do this for the paycheck, or I have to, this is my job, I'm just doing my job. And it's my opinion, until you can effectively say, okay, well, this could be your job right here. Come over here. No more marijuana arrests, no more victimless crimes. You could actually provide a decent good or service and for whatever pay. And so I think that when that point happens, when a few of these officers step away from the blue line and say, all right, I'll try that. I don't know how far we are from that, but I don't think we'll see much change in a police accountability. Eroding the police state would probably be the best term, because it probably won't end it. It'll just chip it down. We could highlight how ineffective it is and hopefully get some of those, peak changes where you turn some Leos to become private businessmen instead of, tools for the government. Here.
The fellow in Detroit, when he first started his business, did he mention to you anything about harassment from the police department for what he was doing?
So the question was, did Dale Brown, when he started his outfit in Detroit, have any negative interaction with the police because of his endeavors? And I don't know, initially he said that he was received with, abrasiveness, I would say, from most of the folks employed there. But he said there was some real key folks, and with their assistance, he now has a weekly class to train Leos that's been run by this Michigan State Patrol employee for a decade, but essentially on like ways not to be gun dependent and to diffuse situation and essentially to not, I don't know, he's a real good guy. But yeah, so anyway, he has a good aspect on that, I guess I would say. Yeah.
I think that when it comes to looking for market solutions to law enforcement or security, defense, I think that's really important that if we're going to move to a stateless or to a policeless society, that we don't neglect the people who otherwise wouldn't be able to afford defense, like the homeless and the indigent. And we should start thinking about ways that we as a community can support the people who are most victimized by the police, the ones without money and without resources. Because until we can prove that, one, we can do a better job than the municipal police for the rich, but also for the ones that they target, then I think that it'll be really hard for us to get over the hurdle with some people.
Go ahead.
You know, in my local town of Lansing, Michigan, about a year and a half ago, the fair citizens of Lansing voted in a property tax increase of about $250 to $350 a year per household. And I thought to myself at the time, the property tax increase was for police money because they were low on, they were having to lay off officers and things like that. I thought to myself, well, $250, $350, that's about the price of a shotgun. You could buy each family in the city a shotgun for that same money, and what would that do to crime? Just a comment.
Sure, that's a good point. Do you have a question?
I managed in my town to get a slight reputation for being the person you call when like your boyfriend's beating the crap out of you or you want to move out of your house and you need somebody to make sure that nothing's going to happen to you and your boyfriend's not going to, or your girlfriend even is not going to set your shit on fire when you leave or stuff like that. And I go take video camera with me and if need be call the cops. I tell them, but I've never had to do it. Right. Just my presence there and having a camera and being intimidating or whatever, just saying I'm coming here to make sure that nothing happens as like I term it as a mediator, right? And,
sure.
And that's worked out quite well. It's not charge anybody.
Right, and that's how I feel.
Get calls from women who need help, and I go.
Yeah, that's how I feel. A lot of like what Antonio touched on. Like one hand would wash the other. Essentially, like if you would end the police state, that would go down in like so middle class, poor, whatever people would one of two things. One, they would either receive a little bit of the blanket from those who are protecting and securing themselves because, anyone who's open carrying this room, we're all getting a little bit of security out of that, whether I'm open carrying myself or not. So if my neighbors got surveillance systems and stuff like that, and even if I don't, I'm going to gain some sort of security from that. And also without the police state, which primary focus is like victimless crimes, beating up on the weak people, not all that money, like this gentleman had mentioned, is wasted there. And so these poor people might not be as poor or have much better jobs, like in the drug trade or something.
And in our neighborhood, we have it's called the COP, the Citizens on Patrol. And when I first moved in there and saw the signs, I was like, this is going to be so bad. But it's just old ladies that walk their dogs and have each other's phone numbers. And they're like, we know who does drugs in the neighborhood. We don't care. That's not what we're here for. People are breaking into people's houses, and people that aren't supposed to be in the neighborhood creeping around people's backyards. That's the stuff we're after. So I go to their little meetings every month, and like at first they looked at me a little weird, but now they, are cool with me, and I go on my little patrol once, a day. I take my little 20-minute walk, and I'm on the schedule and everything. So even that I think is awesome. They call it the COP. So, and I don't see cops in our neighborhood very often. I live in Baltimore, so.
Cops used to be peace officers. At what point do you guys think they made the change from?
I don't think they were ever. I never think that. They've been slave catch and they've been killers since the beginning. A cop is a pig, and honestly, they got to recognize that. They know after 3 years that they are part of the problem. Violence is part of the problem. They perpetrate that stuff. And so that's just my opinion, but we're trying to find ways not to call them. We don't want to deal with them. We we want them to stop hurting people. But the fact is that even we're out there trying to stop major misconduct from happening, but every police interaction where these guys are being bullies are having bad impacts on people's lives. So, I don't know, in Oakland, I mean, we had 5 vehicles shot in front of the house. Not a cop came, and you want to know why? Because people don't call the cops, you know what I mean? Because they don't believe that they can come to help. They have no faith in them, so... I like the ideas that you guys are talking about, and a lot of people in the town obviously take care of themselves. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's one part, but definitely, like, we need to stop relying on them for things that we can take care of ourselves. If you have a community, get with it, you know, and then look after other people, you know, that really need help too. So, I don't know. It's like cop watching. Like, yeah, it's good for us to know our rights. It's good to like know what to do when you're stopped. But, you know, the bigger thing is how can you actually like change? You know, and start making impact. And like I said, I'm not worried about changing them, but I'm worried about seeing you and, you know, people walking away knowing that they can do something. So, you know, at the end of the day, if you see something, you should be doing something. That's my opinion. If you really care about people and you're really trying to make the world a better place, if you see something, you need to videotape it. If you're really about it and you really want to do it, you need to line up with other people. You need to get yourself safe so you're not being isolated, you know, because it's going to be a battle that when's it going to end? Do you guys know? Because it's been a long time. Like I said, I don't think the police were ever good. So
I agree with Jacob, and he's been at this for 13 years, a lot longer than I've been at it. And I think rhetoric matters. You know, if we're going to change society, we got to change the way people look at the cops. And I would much rather call them pigs than peace officers. And it may make some of them upset, but the peace officers, it's a contradiction, right? And it gives them the ability to act like, oh, well, if we're doing our job right, then we're really not that dangerous to the populace. And it's just not true. The police were founded. I mean, the original role of the police in this country was to track down slaves. The Texas Rangers were to kill Indians. Like, let's not forget where they really came from.
Yeah, so I got a couple comments. I don't agree with calling the police names. I don't think that furthers a conversation with them, and I think that having conversations is really important. And if someone's not listening to you because you've called them a name, that's going to hinder that.
I love what you guys do. I think it's incredible. I think you guys make a big difference doing that, yeah.
And I agree with what you said, Jacob, is that, you know, you can't be isolated. And I think that's the whole point of the Free State Project, is to give people the opportunity to not be isolated, to get together in the same community. And you know, as far as changing people's minds about the police, I think some people hold contradictory views. Like you were saying, you're in jail with guys, and I was too, who believe that they deserve to be punished because they got caught for having some drugs or something like that. On the other hand, you could talk to them about how bad cops are. They're like, oh yeah, fucking cops, blah, blah, blah. Right. So like they hold these contradictory viewpoints. I think that if we can popularize the ideas of liberty and police accountability and the things that we're talking about by having a concentration of people in one area, then you'll start to see those things change. Example, I just received an email a few days ago at the News at Free Keene email list, which goes out to a bunch of our bloggers at freekeene.com. The person writing it claimed to be a Cheshire County law enforcement officer. Now, I haven't met with this person yet, but it is my intention to do so. He claims to be a liberty-oriented person. He said he's one of those guys that got into policing because he wanted to change the system from the inside. And, you know, he's just learned that it hasn't been that way, and they've been fucking with him with a divorce and an alimony situation or whatever, and he's just sick and tired of it. And he's feeling like he might want to come out of the closet, you know, so to speak. And I don't think we would have had that contact had we not been, you know, together and doing something visible and showing this person that he would have support were he to want to come out. And of course the question is, how many other people are like him inside this system? I mean, not all of them are thugs. I mean, some of them are just good people.
But they all back each other for the most part. But they all back each other. And yeah.
Maybe that's because they're scared. Maybe
it is. It is because they're scared because they're working in a gang.
And so if you're in an area like Keene or Manchester, where in Keene you've got 40 cops, in Manchester there's 200. I mean, that's the uniformed officers in the area. That's all we're talking about. Versus Oakland, I don't know how many cops you've got in Oakland.
Almost 630 or something. Yeah.
I know Austin, I checked 1,600 last I looked, and Acevedo wanted to increase it to 1,900. So when you're dealing with numbers, once you get to the point where the activists outnumber the police,
everything's going to change.
They bring more police.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, but
sometimes.
they can only get so much tax money out of people at any given moment. So.
Well, I understand, and then that's where, if that would happen, that's where the differences that we're discussing here. I mean, I think it's all effective, and sadly, because I've been on both. I've told a judge and a cop both to piss off and hadn't done the best activism and ended up in jail for it. But it was real. It was an emotional response to them caging friends of mine, like good, close, people I love, and so it was an emotional reaction. So it's real. I don't mind. Doing if it's real, I don't mind letting the police know, like through conversation, that it's real, or that when you sat in front of the car, I was screaming at cops like 2 feet from their face, and I know that's probably not the best thing for the movement, but that's the best thing that I felt at the time, was letting the guy know that I don't appreciate this, and I think you're a fucking jerk, and and maybe the conversation resonates with some, and maybe the guy's like, man, I was a fucking jerk today, or fitting more when he tackles Derek,
Yeah, and I think it's
right down the
important.
street.
I just want to say my position is a stance. It's not when I'm going out and watching the police, I am a hostage negotiator. I am trying to get that person free. There's no space for ridiculing people. All the cops know me by my name. We talk. So, my point is that I am uncompromising in a position that I don't think that that we can recruit police officers to turn in cops. And we got cops coming forward about their participation in shootings. We have stuff happening, and there are people there to support it. But we're not trying to change them, and I don't know. I guess in our case, it's a little bit different. Like, I think you guys actually could. Like, the numbers, like, it makes sense. You guys have the numbers.
I'd echo what Ian said. You're trying to share an idea, essentially. Like, the issue is not necessarily like, yes, it's if this person beats the hell out of somebody and they happen to wear a badge, they're still as accountable, responsible for their actions as would anybody else. But the issue is that they claim a legitimate right, and they're still, and so they that's the real issue. Until people walk away from allowing this group of folks to like take money from them and whatever, then that institution is always going to exist, and then people are going to be in those institutions that can't ever operate as the lofty ideals put forth are. So what I guess I'm trying to say is if you make a blanket statement, you say all of you who happen to wear this costume are pigs, like it may deter some of them from being more open to ideas. And until that happens, it's they're institutions based on fear. Without us, there's going to be chaos. And if we can do things, like Lauren's doing, and just like work with folks in our areas and show there's not a demand for these people, and they are the folks who continue to be active in the institution continue to be aggressive, and they're held accountable as would anybody else would be.
I think you can still tell somebody they were wrong and tell them how you feel about
Right.
their actions without saying you're a pig. If I'm going to walk up to a cop on the street in Keene, I'm going to say, hey Kyle, not hey pig, because I know their name. Like you said, they know your name, but in a town with 400 officers, it's going to be a lot harder to know all the names of the police than one with 40 or 4 or something like that.
This is something I've been very aggressive in my views of the police, and we've been nice to the police for decades, generations. We've been playing nice with them, and they're not coming out, and they're not standing up, and they're not arresting their criminal thug partners. And I don't know where in this country, except for maybe the tiny town that has only one cop, where there isn't corruption, where they don't support each other. So, I don't believe that there's good cops. If there's good cops, they come out, and when they come out, they get killed. I think that there's decent cops where they're decent people deep down inside, but they sell out their values to do unethical acts. And so I appreciate that Oath Keepers reaches out to them. I appreciate the Cop Block reaches out to them.
Yeah, I did too.
But at the end, I am not going to participate in supporting pushing forth any rhetoric that there are peace officers or that there's good officers and that we need to support them, because they're not coming out. They are cowards. And I said, when a hero cop comes out, I will celebrate him to the same degree that I've ever attacked a bad cop. I've never seen a cop turn on his partner who's committing a felony act and arrest them on the spot.
Logan?
I just wanted to say I sort of support both approaches. I think if you first try to appeal to someone's rationality and morality, if that can get through to them, great. If not, I think it is totally important that they feel the anger and the condemnation and the frustration and the hatred. Because, you know, if you compare it to slave days, if the people hunting down the slaves were hated by absolutely everybody, maybe they'll get a new job. So I think there's actually a good, valid reason when morality and reason doesn't work to resort to calling them fascist pigs and let them know we hate you because you're evil. And if they never hear that from anybody, they can be comfortable being thugs. If they hear it everywhere, they're going to maybe think about it, and even if they're not good enough to do the right thing, they'll just leave the stressful position, having everybody hate them.
When they're hitting women in Oakland, there we go, this is why we call you pigs. And we chant that when they do that. So.
I was just wanting to say that with name calling, I'm not entirely against it, but it has to be in line with the truth and with the philosophy we espouse. So pigs is just a derogatory term. So when you have a conversation with someone who has disdain for the system and you call them cops pigs, well, you'll have that conversation, but you won't really get anywhere. But when you call them an economic parasite or a hired goon for the human extortion racket, then you can have that conversation. And
yeah, you're calling them out for what they are.
You know?
Exactly. And it's a harder thing for them to take home. You know. Yeah, and let's not get lost in the pig thing. Right? It's a stance. It's not. I don't even know the last time I called a cop a pig. Really, it's been since 2009. I'm just making a position that we are not. We're not expecting them to change. We're not worried about them changing. That's it. That's all.
He was responding to the claim of peace officer.
Yeah, the peace officer. Sorry. Yeah.
You have a question?
Police officer.
Yeah, I do. Do your organizations do any work spreading awareness about jury nullification?
Well, Cop Block is decentralized, but many people have, you know, advocated or like, you know, I've refused plea deals. I've also, you know, advocated jury nullification at trials. There's been plenty of stories where folks have tried similar things that is shared at Cop Block. It's definitely something that's been highlighted there as well.
Yeah, we have a resources page that has a FIJA document, like a good post about it with some links, and a library that has a couple of related links, and a allied page that lists, you know, links to the FIJA folks and stuff. So, and if you just do a search on there, there's a lot of good info on there for related words.
I think one really effective way of targeting the ones that really need to be quote-unquote called pigs is to do what Father Frank Martinez did in New York. He organized people to go after that 5% or whoever, the really, really bad cops, the ones that are killing people, that are beating people. You know, cops like anybody else, 5% are really evil, 5% are actually pretty good, and everybody else just kind of goes with the flow. So what he did was they would call a demonstration at the home of the cop that was leading the abuse. And as soon as he did that, they got results. From then on, all they would have to do was say, we're going to be doing this, and then the cop that was beating people up would be reassigned somewhere to a desk job. So I actually thought we should do this on a large scale. I proposed the idea of wheretheylive.org, calling for peaceful demonstrations at the houses of egregious abusers with impunity. Have you guys ever done this, or would you be interested?
In Keene, New Hampshire, we have had like candlelight vigils and other like demonstrations outside of people's homes after they've aggressed upon folks.
Yeah, after Derek J. Horton was knocked off the bike by Fenton P. Moore, who wears a Keene PD badge, who went to the neighborhood of Fenton P. Moore and like sang a song outside his. You know, they were looking out from their windows. You know, it was clear they weren't proud of his actions. But then myself and Kelly Voluntaris went to some of his neighbors' houses and just said, hey, by the way, I want to let you know what your neighbor did earlier today to our friend. Go to this site if you want, watch this video and see for yourself. So I thought that was really effective and targeted. So
yeah, I like how you guys in your town, like you see your politicians, the people that are making all these messed up choices, are like right in front of you, and you really have an opportunity to call them out. I think that's awesome. Like in Oakland, they don't live there. They live in Dublin or Pete. You know, they live farther away. They're in the sticks. So.
I live in Oakland.
Oh yeah, so you see what I'm talking about. They're like they're over the hill, and that's that kind of cowboy.
Cameras in Piedmont now.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and all OPD now they've got cameras on their chests, so it's a whole other world right now with us cop watching.
Did you have any feedback from the neighbors you talked to?
Those specific neighbors, you know, it was in a circle in a cul-de-sac, so it wasn't a number of houses. It was probably like 8 to 10 houses, but I haven't heard from any of them specifically, but a lot of them did seem like, you know, like curious, receptive. You know, they they were watching us from out the window initially, and then when we walked up, they seemed like cautiously like, what's going on? And they took it, but they seemed curious. So we did see like 10 minutes after we visited one house, through the window, someone was like, as we're walking away, they're like logging onto that website to Free Keene to watch it. So yeah, it's pretty good. So I think it's in the net, it was a positive, worth the time. At least if one neighbor saw it, they'll talk to each other.
The great thing about personalizing it like that is you're not going to necessarily get any justice through that person, but it serves as a warning signal to all the other cops. So they realize that once they screw with someone in that community, and the people find out about it, that they'll come after them as well. Then that can modify their behavior. Yeah,
one reaction to this was one of a wife of a police employee in another town was like, I can't believe they're doing this to these brave people in Keene. We need to outlaw this, and how come this was allowed? And so it was really, it just shows if you did know that the person involved that tackled and hit Derek J. Horton had a badge on, but you just knew the facts, this dude's riding his bike and this incident happens, you'd be like, hey, this dude was clearly the aggressor. So the fact that his colleagues, like a friend's wife or whatever, has an issue with people going, hey man, that's kind of messed up and watch out for this guy, he's kind of a predator, that's called out and that's questioned, that really shows how the conversation skewed this way. This is that paradigm that is thrust on us by the gun run schools and the mainstream media. So the more we can stop using language like conflating legislation to be law, we say, hey, they just passed a new law, that lessens the validity of what real law is, and we all pretty much know what that is. Like the oversoul is what Emerson might describe it as. But essentially, once that's made clear, then, I think it can have a pretty significant impact.
You have a question?
Well, I just wanted to say about calling them pigs. I don't want to call them pigs because I think that's an insult to pigs.
I know, man.
Just a point of what it was.
Pigs are intelligent.
Does anybody else have a question? Go ahead.
I live in Baltimore. I wanted to ask you, because you live in a bigger city too. We have cameras on every corner, and every time something happens that we want the footage.
Oh yeah, no.
Oh, we freaking lost it.
I don't know what's going on with that. Yeah.
And it's horrendous.
Yeah, right now.
There's been shows made about how bad the cops are in Baltimore. And we fought. They were arresting people for filming, and they took it to the Supreme Court, and then they said knocked it down, and then they said, okay, well you can film us, which I think is within 300 feet. So basically, you have to have a long lens to film us. So they still fucked us over with that one. So what do you suggest even doing in a bigger city?
I think you guys have the. I don't know. We should talk afterwards, because I think you have the right, and I don't know about all these distances and stuff. I think that everybody has a right to feel safe, but.
They will kick your ass.
Yeah, no, I see. I see. Yeah.
There's tons of it.
Damn it! I thought that there was a decision that was just made this.
There was the decision, and then they basically said, well, okay, we'll let you film, but they have to be within a certain amount of feet. That's how they got around it.
Okay.
If the feet is, I don't remember what it is, I think it's like 300, whatever it is.
That's not, no, you can't criminalize people for watching the police.
Well, they're doing it. So,
yeah, we should talk.
Well, after my second arrest, they came out and they made this statement. They said, it's okay to film us. You just have to be outside of a 60-foot radius. And so then we went out the next night and we filmed them from about 15 feet.
Yeah, they'll tell you to stand a mile back. Just in my history of doing it, I found that I'm not trying to have problems. Like I said, we want these people to be free. So what I do is I'll show them. I'll give them a few steps. I'll take a few steps back. I'll go, look here. This is while I'm doing that, I'll tell them my spiel about what my intentions are and get their badge number, and it's all on tape, and go, okay, cool, and just and then hold some ground from there. But there's also a point where have you all watched The Police before? Can we even get what's up with you guys? Okay. If anyone has any questions, you should be approaching us over the next few days too with anything, as far as. When you're stopped or if you see something more. This is 2 hours. Our trainings normally last 3 or 4. So, but you guys should, I don't know. I hope to see some of you guys. If you guys have any questions.
I just want to say that filming the police is one of the most empowering things that you can do, at least for me, because they have all the power. But then when you're holding a camera up to them and they're getting freaked out about it, it empowers me at least. And a lot of the victims who've come out, they come out one time and they come out with us, and after just one cop watch, they're reinvigorated and they feel like they're a whole person again. So even if you only do it once a year, it's definitely worth it. It's really good for the soul.
Yeah, then maybe eventually we won't have to go out on like patrols. But just people will film because we all have cell phones already. I don't get how like cops just aren't on like streams as they just drive around.
That's
from
how we
one
have
camera
it
to the other person.
That's how we have it in Oakland. Like there's a Berkeley Cop Watch, and there's been a lot of like cop watches. But have you guys heard of Oscar Grant? He was a young man that was shot in the back by the police on video on January 1st of 2009, and the cop ended up getting arrested because people really did take to the streets. But I think after that, if there was any question, people knew it. And so now when people are stopped, it's just there's always people with video cameras, and it's everybody, and it's pretty interesting. And then obviously that was in 2009, and then Occupy came around, and so in Oakland, while people are dealing with the bank stuff elsewhere, we're dealing with the foreclosure aspect of that and the Oakland police again. And so it was really in the forefront of everybody's minds as we've been struggling. And so the camera thing, yeah, it's kind of like that at this point. If something happens, someone's videotaping it, and it goes online. And that's kind of like where we're at. And so we're trying to now get better at, well, what do you put online? Like Berkeley Cop Watch filmed a shooting last year. It's not online. We got a guy fighting for his life. He got shot. He survived. We got to figure out how to help him. And so that's another thing is like, what do we do next? How do we publicize these events? How do we protect the victims? And I just want to put it out there that if you ever videotape something that you think you've got something, balance it out. Make your own decision, but like balance it out the getting something out to people and, messing up somebody's ability to defend themselves later. Someone just got maced, all that stuff. Actually not releasing that video, maybe just one spray, but not releasing the rest of it. Because the officer will say, well, before that, this happened. 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, that person will get the report and have that with the video. Bam, the contradiction. But if I go and videotape something and throw it up online, the officer's going to rewrite his report around that immediately. So I'm just, it's about helping people. If you're really about it, it's like we can't just be for ourselves. Like we want to help people and be thoughtful about that. If someone's arrested, follow them, call the jail. Like these guys do call floods. Like I never even thought of that. Like call floods. Like call in. Ask questions. Like, so, I think that's it. I think we got to like recognize and embrace our diversity of tactics and the things that we were brought in this world to do. Like, if you're a singer, man, make a song. If you're a writer, write. Like, but we should all be watching the cops. We should all know our rights. We should all be looking out for each other. So, if we all did that, like, I think we'd be in a good place.
Help me with live streaming. What's the cost? How do you do it? In other words, that seems to me the most safe way to film something so that what you film can't be erased.
Yeah, that's good if you, like if you're stopped by the police, that's great, especially if they're like
I don't know
on
anything about it. Tell me about it.
Well, I don't either. You guys can sign up for something for free. I know that.
Well, there are some that are free. I don't know. Mine might be a little outdated, but like Quick is one, QIK.com, Bamboozer is something that Pete's been utilizing.
Ustream.
Yep, Ustream. And so these are basically applications that are websites, essentially, that you can get to your smartphone, film live, and then have that footage go to the internet where it's stored. And so if the cop stops the recording, breaks your phone, deletes the recording off of your actual phone, that when you get out of jail or when you get to it later, or a friend could access the video online, or people could actually watch in real time if you are in within your data plan package.
Yeah, Dan. If you go to copblock.org/apps, APPS, we have all the streaming applications listed there. Copblock.org/apps, and I recommend Bamboozer. Quick was kind of first on the scene, but they cap you at 25 videos on the free account. The other account's only a few bucks, but Bamboozer. Yeah, it has a little thing next to it on the page. It's an app for your phone. Do you have a smartphone?
No, not yet.
Okay, so first tool is you need a smartphone, and then you could download a number of any streaming applications for free. There's like at 4 to 5, 6. BAMBUSER. ER. And you can set it up to record your phone and to stream. So ideally, if you have a strong enough connection, it's streaming and storing it. But otherwise, it'll upload later, when you tell it to. But it was instrumental, for example, when we were in Vegas, so we were hanging out in an RV, and some folks with badges came around and demanded we came out. And after a lengthy conversation and interaction outside, they ended up kidnapping and caging him. So the fact that it had a majority of it had been live streamed really had a significant impact, because it got out there right away. So the facts were clear. I didn't have to sit down and take time and rewrite what I remembered. I didn't have to hope that people trusted what I was communicating or had to spend time to verify it. They could just see it themselves and come to their own conclusions. So because of that, they put him in a cage out there, and they ended up kicking him to the curb the next day.
Yeah, I spent 22 hours in jail that time, but I think what was most effective about that call flow was, the video and the live stream, and how quickly people were able to see that I was wrongfully arrested. And so so many people called, they shut down the phone lines at the jail, and so finally they're like, just get out of here.
Yeah, then not to throw the wet blanket back into the wet stream stuff, but then we've had situations where we're looking at the police intelligence files, and if there's a live stream, and one can make an argument, well, better a live stream than cops. I don't, but they rely on the live stream when in bigger protests and stuff for figuring out where to kettle them or where to put cops, and they also use them in cases later. And so it's kind of complex. I guess, the argument will be made that, well, if you're out there, transparency and this, that, and the other, but you're also, when you're out there struggling for freedom and then suddenly get a conspiracy to riot charge and get linked up with things that you didn't do or don't. I mean, I don't know what kind of classifications you guys are dealing with, but in the Bay Area, it's, we've got the feds and we got the joint terrorism things. Like, they want to criminalize dissent. I'm imagining you guys experience the same stuff everywhere, right? So
I want to thank you, gentlemen. I've got to do the audio in the pavilion, so I'm not leaving to get out of this. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah. And can I ask how many people know the reference? Jacob just said kettle. Do y'all know what he's talking about? Because these might be
come around and just contain people. It's called a kettle.
Yeah, the police tactics and
stuff. They do snatch and grab, a few different ways. Again, so they'll do a snatch and grab and do these perimeters where they arrest one, then grab others until it's this big thing. Or they'll do the line and push and shoot, or they'll kettle and just arrest everybody.
Yeah, so Jacob's experiences have been, different than I think, at least for myself, whereas he showed me a video last year of an Oakland PD police liaison employee saying, we would never dream of taking somebody's camera for filming us. You have every right to film us. Meanwhile, her colleagues are out on the street shooting at people and things 3, 4, and 5 times. Some of these guys, Jacob was saying. So it's just different. Yeah, different places. So. Yeah, we can learn a lot from each other, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Larkin?
Do you have a preference between filming openly and filming covertly? And I know there's the state law thing. Like in Pennsylvania, they'll arrest you if you find out you filmed them without permission. Most states, only one party needs to know.
You get more dirt.
Doing it secretly might be better.
It's good for dirt, but it's not.
It's often their police reports all the time.
I would say. I mean, the whole point of cop watching is to stop stuff. We are documenting, but I take comfort in feeling like that camera's making a difference. But I do think that filming the police, if you can't get in trouble for it, I think it's also very effective. I've had situations where I've got a still camera and they think it's a video camera and they just start saying the damnedest things. Maybe I shouldn't have even said that. I should have said it on the under. But, they're not always aware of what's going on. And so, I don't know. I mean, just check up. One thing that's really important is we all have the moral authority, all right, to do what we're doing. Check up on your local things. Some things are a little bit different, I don't care if I really I'm under the ground that we have the right to do this because it is the right thing to do and what they're doing is wrong. But you really should know your rights and you should know them in your state and the whole thing. So just be up on it. You've got a question. The internet does answer.
Yeah, my philosophy right now for that is currently with my suspended 4-year prison sentence, I'm not going to play in their playground. I'm not going out on cop blocks and stuff like that just because I jaywalk or something and it's do not pass go and just go directly to jail. And so it's more of if they want to play, they're going to have to come to my playground and play. And if that's the case, then I could see myself discreetly filming them because they're probably going to be investigating me or some instance like that. So it'd be circumstantial to, I guess, what what circumstance it is to which goal I have. And so, like, when I go out cop blocking, my goal is probably to highlight, like, what the police, show people what the police actually are and what they do in their daily tasks of, like, traffic stops and extortion and the regular racket. But if they're coming after me and, like, investigating, or if, like, Philip Cristiano want to have a conversation at a coffee shop, I'd be happy to say I'll be there. And if he's like, well, don't record, I'd be like, whatever, and record anyways. And I'd feel no guilt about it at all. So just because I feel that I'd have more the intent for information to be out there, especially if they're asking for secretive things, that, yeah, I'd just hide it.
Yeah, when we cop watch, we do love to catch the cops on video doing something really stupid, but most of us really love it when we stand there with our cameras and the cops end up not arresting a person they otherwise would have, and that we just save that person thousands of dollars, a night of their freedom. Sometimes they have to lose their car because they can't pay to get out of the impound lot, and so being there and being a presence is really powerful.
I have two questions. One, what are your views on lawsuits? Because I know in Boston, a fellow got beaten up by the cops for filming a few years ago and sued the city, and now you can film the cops. How effective are they? Have you considered them being considered unjust or wasting tax money?
Yeah, yeah, we talk about this stuff all the time because, in Oakland, people are like, we got lawsuits against OPD every time they shoot somebody with their little things or whatever. There's a lot of lawsuits in motion. And, we argue, like, where's this money? Wouldn't it be better if these cops are really held accountable for their actions, if we could, like, bring them in and do some sort of restorative justice or, do something? And, wouldn't it be better if, like, that money was coming from their pockets? So, wait, OPD's paid over, like, $90,000, I think, their first year. They make over $100,000 in overtime. They're making $200,000, most of them, like, with all the little things. Yeah, they are the 1% in Oakland, man. Then, so, if it came out of their pocket, maybe they stopped doing it. But it's coming out of the cities. So, I have mixed feelings for it. I say sue the shit out of them, but make your own decisions for yourself, because it is. Maybe it's better to, you see, and then it's like, what? You want to change policies? But you do have to change policies. I don't want to do it. There are lawyers that will, and it has made a difference. Like, one time they were shooting people in the head with the wooden dowels in Oakland in 2003, and they didn't do it for 7 years. But it's not because they weren't thugs. They just didn't feel like they could get away with it, and then they started doing it again. So I don't know.
I say sue the hell out of them, and then when you win, have a press conference and say it kind of sucks that this money is coming out of taxpayers' pocket. I think that the police department should, be cut this much to make up for it.
Well, my answer, like everything else, is that it depends on what's going on, and so there are times where, I don't want to sue taxpayers either. But I mean, if we want to start the conversation about taxpayers and taxing, and then it's like, what is money? And money is paper that they print uncontrollably, and it's really just pieces of paper. And so taking pieces of paper from people and doing whatever. And so there are some times where, in Las Vegas, I probably could have pursued a lawsuit. But what it breaks down to me is that most of the time the lawsuits that I could have would be not small enough for an attorney, and I don't want to spend 2.5 years fighting the government when, like, you don't get a right stamp and the right piece of paper in the right corner with some black magic with it, and, like, everything's a waste. And so I don't have that time to risk wasting. But if there is a case like when Pete and I were arrested in Massachusetts, there's a lawsuit that I'm going to have with Greenfield, and if maybe by some miracle chance the government says my last wiretapping arrest was wrong, then I'd probably have some grounds for a lawsuit. And if somebody wanted to put the work into that because they see it profitable, then I would do something like Antonio said, like, try to do more good with that resource of whatever it is. And then, but I don't have much faith in that, because I've always wondered this, because there's a lot of people who have sued police and won, and yet, like, none of them, like, started a cop block or gave away 1 million cameras or anything like that. So I always wondered why people, sue the police and then, like, don't try to hold them accountable for what they did to them.
Yeah, Terry Bressie, Checkpoint USA out there, he won a settlement after a decade-long suit with going through some internal checkpoint, and with that he bought some cameras and gave them to some activists and things. But me personally, I mean, we got arrested in Mississippi in 2009, and that was like, I was 29. That was my first time I was ever kidnapped and caged, but we had some folks step up that had their, like, proper permission, licenses or whatever, and they wanted to help us with the civil thing and then represent us, or help us with the criminal thing and represent us with the civil thing. But I guess we went back to town one time and did a lot of sort of on the street activism, and they thought it was too much, so they backed away. But then we had our stuff in Massachusetts he mentioned, which was like a wiretapping charge, and initially we had another lawyer lined up, and who was kind of busy, I guess, and this other team, wants to step up, but I guess Ademo and I have taken a different approach, maybe. Pretty much, like I had a conversation with this team of lawyers a couple weeks ago, and they wanted essentially, they said you just have to sign this suit, and we put in the work, and then there's a high likelihood of whatever, I'm sure, but where I'm at is I don't know, I don't want to. If I knew it would go to private mediation and the people that are named in the suit are these individuals that were responsible, this individual named Todd M. Dodge who initiated our kidnapping and caging, and some of his colleagues who assisted in our kidnapping and caging, and then the town of Greenfield, which is a corporation, which is to me just like whatever, it's legal, it's a legal fiction. So I don't know issues like holding them accountable and going to private mediation to do that, which was one alternative she wanted to pursue potentially, but even to get there you have to file the suit through this what an institution I don't want to legitimize, so I ended up deciding not to, pursue that endeavor myself.
I think it nothing like for all those ones that happened that it just would take too much or not worth it or whatever. I just like those are the ones where you guys and where folks are putting them up online for their children to see and ask their parents why are people saying this about you, Daddy, or whatever. And I think that's like. Well, one of the biggest parts after the trying to keep stuff from happening in the moment, it's been, I don't know. I really think that shaming them in front of their community, and not like they want to be known as bad cops. Cops that hurt people, they want to be known as being tough. It's their motto. It's what they do in the mirror. You know what I mean? So not that. It's really talking about who they really are and what they're doing. And it is. I think it does impact them. I've seen. One cop, his heart's broken, you know what I mean, but he did it. It's not our problem. We just, helped his family see it. So.
Hi. I think somebody asked a question about after a lawsuit, why don't you, go to activism? My son was arrested maybe 6 years ago. He was on probation we spent thousands and thousands to get him a lawyer, and for 5 years, we kept our head down. We were scared to death of the police. The state police arrested him, and he was on probation for 5 years. And then at the end, we're like, now I'm getting involved. He's still scared. He's just petrified of the police. And he's 28, and
yeah, honestly, that's a very common question we get at Cop Block, through whatever channel, and I'm always like, the more open you can be now, the more of a deterrent it is, the more you'll embolden others to step up, the more people local will step up now to help you and do damage control and not live in fear, you know what I mean? Because if a schoolyard bully continues to get away with doing that action, there's no deterrent, when's it going to stop, and how's it going to be? It's going to be more difficult.
Yeah, and my comment about people not getting involved was just I was more or less talking about people who win lawsuits against the police and then they disappear, or then it's okay, they're like, oh yeah, I got beat up but I got money, and so they don't become active in preventing that from happening to anybody else. I get a lot of stories about people who been beat up and don't have the ability to get that kind of justice even, but not many who are yeah, I was beat up and I won $100,000 and so I've been doing this the whole time. It's well, I got $100,000 and what the police did was just that guy. And it's they're still apologetic for policing in general, as a service to people who want it. So.
Well, to stick to your values on what it is that they offer, because there's, as you know, lots of negotiation that goes on as far as getting money out of it. You'll want a whole lot more, probably settle for less, and then I'll say, and by the way, don't go to the media.
Right.
It's a contract. Contract can take many forms, so we don't know what's going on there. So if that comes around to you, stick to your values. That'll guide you ahead.
Sure. It's great advice. Anybody else have a question? I'm not even sure if we're running close on time. Oh, wow.
Oh, cool. There's some videos too then.
You want to brainstorm? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I just had a note. You could always just write every property tax owner or whatever in the county a check with the money you won and that win some favor among the locals.
Yeah, that was one suggestion to like what if monies were received to like just give it back to folks in the town there and like hold a conference and do a training and like with information or whatever. But
it wouldn't be worth. I just got a $5,000 settlement from the town of Palmer. I don't know if I was to try to divvy that up amongst all the property taxpayers in Keene, for instance. I mean, I wouldn't be able to afford the postage.
Like 23 cents a person, and then
Cut a check. How much the check's going to cost?
Sure.
But I agree with rolling the money back. Again, I think that was something that you see with people like in your situation. People are frightened to death of the police, and one of the reasons why is they don't have a support network. You know, there's nobody around. No one came to the trial. Nobody's there to support them, and that's why organizations like Cop Watch and Peaceful Streets are great to have. So in communities like Oakland and Austin, there's somebody there that they can turn to, or of course all across New Hampshire, you know, there are supporters. People have Port 411 everywhere. So being in that place, I would say. The lady that asked about Baltimore earlier, what can you do if you're in a big city? Get the hell out and get to New Hampshire.
That's right.
Yeah, Jacob and Antonio, you guys have like and Ademo too. You guys have like practical, like what 2-minute overview would you give someone on how to like best protect themselves, you know, from threats from folks who have badges? I mean, just like what are some of the nuts and bolts and things? Because I think you guys each have different experiences and.
Go in circles, or what do you want to do?
Sure.
All right. Well, I think watching the police, like Cop Watch, is obviously it's a group, but it is. I got to emphasize it. It's an idea. It's the idea that's built around that we have a right to watch the police. I have spent a decade doing organized shifts. I think it's a good thing to do. If you can go out with a friend, if you see something, I do. It's like you took your risk. Were you by yourself that day or on your New Year's? Yeah. Dangerous stuff.
I had a friend.
Oh, okay, cool.
Well, we weren't cop watching. It was just we just stumbled upon a situation.
But that's the thing. Okay, so you stumble, like, make your moves and do what you feel comfortable with doing. But if you're going to do it serious, like, you need to partner up. Because even just, you take that from the idea of being a group, an organization, but just out in the street, you need to have like one person. Well, you're gonna be blocked. So we go out in groups. I'm imagining that we all go out with multiple cameras from multiple angles. When we approach the police, we approach slow, and we treat them like wild animals. Like if they're scared, they're dangerous, right? So you don't want them to be scared, and it does better for them not to be angry, because again. If your goal is to make a situation better, like, what's the point? So yeah, we approach them slow. We never like run up on them and stuff. I mean, sometimes stuff's going down, and you're like, but there's those risks. They're all they're trained to is just do that stuff. I generally the cops know who Cop Watch is, and people who are stopped do too. It's pretty much out there, but. If there is any question, when you walk up to the police, I would say that I always look at the victim and I go, hey, I'm here for you. I'm not with the police. And, you could say you're with the group you're with or what your intentions are, but I prefer talking to the person that's been stopped. And briefly, I don't want to be accused of interfering or anything. It's just letting them know who I am and what my intentions are. Then the cop will go, can you step back, or we can play that game, or they won't. But either which way, the second the cop comes to engage me, I get that badge number immediately. It goes into their brain, ching ching, this person knows something. And this is on video. And anything I do after this, there might be consequences. I would have to erase it. And they start going through all these layers of what is the value of my interaction with this person right now? Should I leave it alone? Maybe I will. And they do. And so it's not trying to fight. It's like, everything is to like get them to move. And so, everything from your body language to the words you use. And I don't think that there's any police interaction that cannot be handled verbally. I really strongly think that we can really do a lot with our minds. Their minds are not as strong. And that'll be evident if you actually go out there and talk to them. They follow orders. They're not always the brightest people in the world. And so they're also easy to talk to and to get them understanding, more about what your positions are. So that is where I do think it is good to talk to them. I think that they're told to do a job. It's a hard job. They're taught to break laws, to enforce laws, this, that, and the other, and we have rights too. And so, they need to understand that. I'd also say that if you ever have interactions with the police, I have them all the time. And I always just tell the cop, look, man, you know why I'm here, and I guess we're in a situation where they do actually understand why we're here, because they do plant drugs, and they do plant guns, and they enter homes illegally, and they hurt people, and all that. So they understand why we're here. But I always tell them, like, look, I mean, you don't have to come to me. I'm not trying to be your best friend or anything. I don't even want to talk to you. But the fact is if there's something wrong, if there's something that you see that's happening, you can get it out. You can get it out to We Cop Watch or to Berkeley Cop Watch, or screw Cop Watch. You can get it out to any one of these, anti-police or pro-account. They're everywhere. And so people, they do have the power. They've got the information. And if a cop's really about it, and that's the first thing. And so all the cops that are watching this video, you know what I mean? Dude, you got a problem with police, do something about it. Like, we're tired. Like, we got better things to do than watch the police. Like, you got a problem, like, with what we're doing? Like, change it. Like, turn people in. Like be a man, be a woman, be a grown-up. Be whatever. Like, do it. So, I mean, why do we have to do it? I mean, we should. We should all be, I guess that's what it is like, we need to enter this next world where we're not relying on these institutions that obviously aren't favorable to us. We need to literally go back to what it means to have a neighbor, to have a community, and to look out for people who have needs, and do it like that. So
yeah, I agree with pretty much everything Jacob just said. We have our tagline with Peaceful Streets Project is protect and serve each other. Cops say protect and serve us. We protect and serve each other. We don't need them. We want to help each other out. And to be safe from police, I think we have to get rid of the police. That might be a pipe dream, and it may not happen in our lifetimes, but we can do as much as we can to make them irrelevant and get them out of our communities. And to protect and serve each other, we do need community. And so, as Ian said, find yourself around other people who are willing to do the same thing. He obviously prefers New Hampshire. But in Austin, Texas, we have a huge community that's building up around police accountability as well. And there's other places. Some people are just locked into their communities. They have family that they can't move away from for whatever reason. I would love to see police accountability or a community in Baltimore that can make the Baltimore police stand down. And so it's hard to do with only 5 people. 10 people, 100 people. The bigger and bigger it gets, the more powerful it becomes. The guys out in Sandusky, Ohio are just killing it. And there's only about 5 to 10 of them in a town of 30,000. But they have turned that town upside down going after corrupt cops. And, community, whether it's on a big scale like the Free State Project or a small scale in a certain neighborhood, I think that is what helps protect us against the police when they know that there's going to be consequences for their actions. If I go after someone in this community, I will pay. Why do they go after the homeless so much? Because they know that no one's going to come after them. So I think that's first and foremost. When it comes to actually dealing with the cops, I think it's really important that you figure out ahead of time where you stand. Are you an activist? Do you want to stand up for the rights of other people? Do you want to make a point? Do you want to expose them? Or do you just want to go home that night to your family and you don't want to lose your job? And that really dictates how much you can do in a given interaction. And if your focus is on getting home that night, then maybe you have to tuck your tail a little bit, and maybe you do act respectful and just get through the situation, because a $250 ticket is a lot better than your life. So people should think in their mind, what am I going to do in various circumstances? What am I going to do if a cop pulls me over and says I was speeding and I wasn't? Okay, what am I going to do if I see a cop, planning something on someone? What am I going to do if I see a cop raping someone? What am I going to do if I see a cop killing someone? And what are you going to do in each of those situations? And then realize every interaction with a cop is a risk to your life and liberty. There is not a single interaction with any uniformed police officer where your life and liberty is not at risk. Now, you can do things to hopefully mitigate those risks, and most people don't get killed by a cop every time they come into contact with them. You only get killed once. But the point is that no one should ever assume that cops are friendly, cops are going to respect your rights, that you're going to get through a situation and you're not going to be at risk of being hurt or killed. Approaching them as if they're wild animals is a really good way to think about it.
Yeah, I mean, they summed up a lot of what I could add to it. But yeah, basically, if how do I protect myself from cops? There's the obvious of cameras, handhelds that you could have. I mean, I'd look at it like bug out bags, or like Antonio was just touching on, to be prepared. You know, throw an old camera in your glove box, or you know, make sure your iPhone or smartphone's always charged up. Get yourself familiar with some of the apps. And like Antonio was just touching on, like, think of scenarios like, what will I do if I'm pulled over? Like, how far do I want to go? Like, what's my goal essentially? And like, is my goal to end this interaction as soon as possible, or is my goal to highlight, you know, the police state and for what they are, and then, you know, act accordingly and be fine with like the outcomes of each of those paths? But being prepared and thinking in advance is definitely a big thing. Watch some videos, check out some of the resources at all the websites that we all work at, and you know, just little stuff. I know when Pete and I traveled around, we had like camera here, camera there, one attached to your backpack, one easy to pull out, one that could live stream. You know, that might have been excessive or more fitting for what we were doing. But if you're going to work, you use the same vehicle, one in your glove box, something quick in your purse or something like that would be, you know, could be the difference between like you know, $250 fine or accidental or intentional shooting, whatever it might be. So the worst case scenario.
I like how you guys had the DVDs and the flyers too when you guys were going out and doing your outreach shifts in Massachusetts. I think that's really great. Oh yeah, there's this one video where like you guys are doing it and then someone runs up from behind. It's like, I love that video. You guys rock. And it's like, yeah. So I think, you know, and I guess you guys, you know, we rock sometimes. You know, actually, out we don't really rock gear. We just watch the police. But it's really good, like, because people walk by, like, if you're going out on a real organized shift, people walking by, and if you don't have an opportunity to communicate with people because you actually are watching the police, like, people are like, oh, look, there's peaceful streets, or there's Cop Block, Cop Watch. And so that's pretty cool. Yeah, really that's one cool thing about doing this stuff is that you really show people what you're about. It's, you know, there's a lot of groups that say they do things, or, you know, but people actually get to see and get to experience, you know, as well firsthand. And I think that's really wonderful. I think, like, it was the Sandusky Cats just a couple weeks ago. They're like, you know, figured out who's in the back of the car, and the person in the back of the car is like, peaceful streets, help! You know, and he got out. He got out, and, you know, and so that was really effective. And so that's the whole magic about this. I mean, you know, we can talk all day about how bad they are. We can talk forever, but we do have like these little winning experiences, and so, you know, I don't know, you know, we need to be guided by our community and supported. Like, you don't exist unless you have support. It's just the way it goes. I mean, there's no point. Again, you're just looking out for a hypothetical right if you're just going to go out and watch the police because you have the right. So it's really good to have support, and really good to have connections, and even in the aftermath. I mean, like, you guys are having these vigils outside people's houses, like that. Wow, like, yeah, we don't have that, but we do go to the areas where the stuff has happened, and that always is pretty good because we're able to, you know, get a lot more people that were on the ground and connect and go from there.
Yeah, when we as individuals stand up to the police, we take on a ton of risk. But when we as individuals in a community stand up to the cops, then we actually become safer in the long run. And I'm sure you guys have this experience where cops have been really nice once they see your copblock.org sticker. And the same thing's happened in Austin. And one of my good buddies recently got arrested because he was driving on a suspended license. And it kind of sucked, but the guy he was giving a ride to had some pot, and the jerk just, like, left it in the car. And the cop saw it, and he acknowledged that it wasn't his, so he just tossed it in the woods. And then he didn't handcuff him, drove him to the jail without his cuffs, and then cuffed him right before they went in, so that, you know, they could see it in the video that he was cuffed coming in. And my friend was like, "Wow, like, why is this guy being so nice to me?" And then right at the end, right before he turned him over to the county police, he said, "Hey man, why didn't you film me?" And so somehow they knew that he was a member of Peaceful Streets. Probably because he's been listed under the gang affiliation, but they were really nice to him because they didn't want a reason for, you know, this guy didn't want to have to deal with the repercussions that would have come out of him being mistreated.
So Austin cops have added you as gang affiliation?
I'm assuming they have, yeah.
Yeah, that tends to be something listed up here. Certain things, Free Stater or whatever. Yeah.
Well, they use the gang. I mean they have intelligence, so as part of their operation. So, like, yeah, of course, they're going to criminalize you through the gangs. Right.
When I've been in jail, like, you get the pleasure of being strip searched, and so they, like, identify all your tattoos or scars, and so, like, and all the forms of all the jails I've been in where it's done, it's just like, gang tattoos, and like there's like all tattoos to them in jail are like gang affiliations. So they're like Cop Block, gang, and I was like, whatever. I argue with them.
Yeah, I just add to what these guys said about like being prepared and stuff. I mean, both your gear, so like make sure whatever you have, your device is charged and has some memory at least to record for a bit. And when I drive, I have like a camera that records live or records forward facing on a loop. That was one that Terry Bressey provided. And then I keep my smartphone like on bamboozers, so if something happens, it's just like a click, and then you're live streaming. So just having that at the ready, but also to have you like prepare your, what I would say is like your mind, yourself, just like make sure you're like, think about like what's going on these days, like step back and, look at what other nation states or whatever empires have done and what's happened and how it's unfolded, and, think about how we could potentially this time, instead of having another revolution, have like an evolution. And if you think that, if you tend to be more optimistic and think more people are good and that things spontaneously emerge from the bottom up, and think that makes sense more than top-down control, then you would probably conclude that a society that operates more on consensual interactions will be will be the norm or whatever. So I would just say that by preparing your mind, like, hey, this is whatever, this makes sense. It seems to be inevitable, so I'm going to be, that could be very empowering for yourself. It can, set your trajectory knowing that, you're acting in the right. And by doing so, and if someone does come at you and you leverage that, document and disseminate it through certain outlets. We got 115,000 unique views on Cop Block last month. So there's a good number of eyes forming from all these things. And especially once you connect locally and you have people showing up with you in legal land, you're not just paying these ransoms, then we can really have an impact. So I just say prepare yourself, like your gear and everything, and yourself mentally, and really think about what potential exists today with technology and everything, with these like mesh nets and hacker spaces and all these things. So I'm pretty excited.
Sorry, I was just going to tag on you. Like, submit to Cop Block. Like, get that thing online. Like, get your experiences. And again, like, in the favor, I always am in favor of the person that was stopped. But I think it's really, really important to get the information out there. And I think it's really, God, so great to see so many different groups watching the police and then now actually getting that information out for people to see. And like, kind of like, I would say like, God, I've learned so much just watching videos too. I mean, most of it's been in the streets, but I love watching other people's, experiences to kind of guide me with, every stop's different, but you can try one way. If that doesn't work, you can try another. I mean, there are options, as far as how to negotiate situations, to favorable conclusions. Yeah. Oh, I would also say I've got a video, These Streets Are Watching, which we made in 2003, but it's all your rights. I mean, if you guys want to like brush up on like what a consensual encounter to a detainment, reasonable suspicion, stuff like that, it's called These Streets Are Watching. It's online. It's 50 minutes. And sadly, it's like as relevant today as it was back then. So.
People in Baltimore already film the cops. There's videos everywhere because they immediately film the cops. So, like, what would you suggest doing to get the videos that people already, I mean, you can film Baltimore police brutality on YouTube and you're never going to stop. Because people just film it. But they film it, they put it on YouTube, and they don't have any resources to get it out. How do I, like, connect with them and let people know that there's a way to get that video out?
Well, I like the way Keene, I just, throw it out. Like, Keene's a really good example to me where you've got just, man, if I don't see it on Cop Block, I'm going to, hear about it on the radio or see it on Derek's YouTube. There's so many different, like, it's like the Ridley Report. So there's a lot of overlap but on issues that are really important.
Yeah, but at copblock.org, I mean, they could.
I mean, you got a neighborhood, you can do it. It's like, that's the way I really feel. It's like.
Yeah, if they're able to putting it on YouTube is great, because I have a lot of folks who have like video and you gotta kind of give them a 101. So maybe part of that prepping is like know how to upload a video, edit to whatever part you want. I mean, I think raw is always good. Even if I edit a video, I try to put up the raw.
Do you think if you commented on their YouTube video, like trying to like one-on-one contact with people?
Well, I mean, if they put up a YouTube video and then if they.
Yeah, I reach out to people. I reach out to people that upload stuff on YouTube. Yeah, definitely.
And there's folks that do social networking at Cop Block through all the outlets that it has, but I mean, copblock.org/submit, if they put up a YouTube video and they can send a link to there with a little, write up about what happened in the video, and that helps get it to the front pages of Cop Block.
Yeah, in addition to the contact information and the names of the people involved, and stuff like that. And at the top of that submit page, there's a post that's called "So You've Been Wronged by a Police Employee," and so it just essentially says, "So you've had a negative interaction. Here are steps you can do. Like write it down now while it's fresh, like or do a video review, or put it here, share it here, do this. Just some ideas." So it's usually a good resource, I've found.
Have you ever worked with people overseas filming cops? Or would you intend to in the future? Or?
I'd love to leave the
I'd
United
love to leave
States.
the country too. There's a lot of there's cop watch groups in UK and Russia and France, so they're all over the place. There's people watching the police. Yeah, we should do that. We should do an international tour. All talking about maybe trying to get some little local stuff going on. But
yeah, people contacted us in Australia and New Zealand to start it up, and there was a push in India because of a lot of stuff that's going on over there. That'd be great. We need the resources to do it. We need people over there who are willing to stand up. Cops are really bad here in the United States, but like in India, they're way worse. So.
I got an extortion on tape where they're or a bribe. That's it. Like taking money in the streets in India and Mumbai. Just cop watching.
Yeah, just hearing how just granting this folks a double standard, and we see it at a certain level here, but just recognizing how it is in other arbitrary political boundaries. Like Yuri, some of y'all met, who's from Russia. He shares stories of, if over there, if you're labeled as being in charge of like a protest or a march or something, you're issued a ransom and an amount that equates to 30,000 FRNs. So it's like a way that they've tried to, clamp down on people vocalizing their dissent, or this group of folks say that you have to have our permission. If you and one or more people get together to protest something, we have to give you permission. So, Yuri says it's common for the police employees or some of their accomplices to just go stand with somebody to use as rationale to then kidnap and cage them. So it's just, if we don't stand up and like make filming the norm, like I love when I start seeing videos when there's multiple people filming, but it should be the norm. We shouldn't have to go out on patrols. It should just be, hey, I see someone doing something, what's going on, and just document it. Take a few minutes out of your day to pull over and film for somebody, because if that were you, you'd probably appreciate it. And like was suggested, like I think being proactive definitely helps set the tone. Like Jacob mentioned, he says, "Hey, I'm here for you." I often just say, "I'm here to create an objective record, make sure no one gets out of hand, or if they do, there's a record." And because otherwise, police employees will say, "Hey, you don't want them," or like, "Do you want them here, or you don't want them here, do you?" And a lot of folks are nervous, and they'll be like, "I guess not, no." And then sure, you have the right to be there, but I try to respect folks, so I'll at least tell them, why I'll respect you, but this is why I don't think that choice is smart, but I just say, yeah, those are good tactics.
Yeah, they tell you to turn,
consider.
Checking out the camera and stuff, like someone don't want to be videotaped. People could be informants, people, like, there's all sorts of reasons, and right reasons, too, to not want to be filmed, so people have a right. And what I kind of do is, that doesn't, I'll put the camera down. If they move on the person, I'm going to turn it back on to just, document the actual physical interaction part. But yeah, I still stay. The one thing, most of the worst things that I've ever seen happened in that final moment, and so it's not for you to. The final moment's not for me when I leave. It's when they leave, and so I wait for the stop to end. And a lot of times they'll actually wait you out to they got the warrant on the person. They don't want you there. It happened to me the other day actually, where the cops were chasing somebody. They wanted to jump the fence, and. They waited. We stayed, and so they left. There was a cop car at the end of the road. So when we left, they all came back, but we had somebody there videotaping. They were in the yard, and so we got them doing this whole thing. We got it on the radio too. It's like you guys actually shut down a perimeter because we were there, and then came back because there wouldn't be but we documented it. So I don't know.
Go ahead.
So, do you know of anybody who's creating a database of law enforcement officers where people can not everyone
in Oakland
is caught on video, so people can report their interactions and have basically a dossier on every law enforcement officer in the United States? Yeah, it's really hard.
We're doing that in Oakland. I've got pretty much most of the photos, and I've got all the information. And I don't know if you guys. I shouldn't be saying this stuff. Anyways, we're in the works of making a phone app right now, and it's in its pretty good stages right now. And it'll be something where you're at a protest, you're stopped by the police, and this is going to be something that you guys can download and create for your own cities too. It's going to be an open source app. But basically, I'm pulled over by the police. I look up the name, the photo comes up, the information. And then if there's fact-verified information, like there's a settlement on a killing, false search warrant, or beat somebody up and occupy, and here's the link to the video, that'll be at the bottom of the dossier. We can't get this stuff. They're our public employees. We should just be able to walk down to the police station, open up that file cabinet, and see everything. Anything we want, we should be able to see it. Really, unless it's... Yeah, that's the way I feel. And so if we can't get it like that, if it's so bad that they've got police cameras in Oakland on their chest, but I can't get their video, we need to connect the dots ourselves. So that's my long answer for you. Berkeley Cop Watch is working on a database. It's a lot more offline. It's meant for people to actually come and tell their experiences, because while mine is supposed to be more of a fact-verified, you're at a protest, you're stopped by the police, you want to know what this police officer is and not get into a Yelp where you're seeing ratings. But the other one is equally valuable, because you want these intimate conversations, because at the end of the day, in 2000, we had a gang of cops called the Riders, and they were kidnapping people and planting drugs and beating them up. A rookie police officer came forward 3 weeks in, was like, screw this, these guys are a joke, I can't do this. And that was really helpful, but another part that was helpful was there was a police accountability group that had a database. And guess what? All these cops were named, and people had been coming in with these stories. My money was taken from my wallet. They hit me in the back of the head, while they were restraining me. And the dots got connected. But again, it's this is stuff that's what, you guys want to hear about how they were disbanded and they're still Facebook friends with the chief of police? And, accountability, I don't know where any of that's going to happen. But I have full faith in situations where we are all standing here and you are all here. This is what I have faith in.
Yeah, definitely. We attempted a site called Cop Reports. A lot of folks had messaged saying, hey, this would be a good database, a good feature to have, good component. And then, so we had a statistician, a guy who had a background in that, step up and offer to help in some capacity. And then later, a web database builder guy stepped up. So they started working on this, and we had the site, Cop Reports, for a year, but it never really gained a lot of traction. A lot of people just kept going to Cop Block, so that site no longer exists. So it was just maybe in another model, a localized model might work, and then all that's put somewhere and put on the cloud or something.
Yeah, that'd be the idea, is that you could access.
It's a pretty daunting task, is what we found out, and it's programming behind or past my knowledge, and then server space clouding it. It's not you're sending a picture. It's a lot of information that needs to be stored, and then it would also require not only a lot of individuals to literally log their local police, but picture of them and then verify that stuff. And it could be it would take a lot of resources, I think, but definitely doable, definitely something I'd be interested in being involved in, but definitely something that, in my opinion, would have to be a big team aspect. And especially for that, if you do that, if one person would decide to start that website, they would be targeted by the police very quickly to be stopped. And so that's the other reason why I think it should be a good group of people, 20, 30 people who do it, so that none of that could happen, or things could still be highlighted.
Yeah.
Right, group founders.
Yeah, and then this app's going to be it's offline until you make it online. So the whole idea, what we're hoping is to get all the information first in place. If you guys did it in Keene, you download it, get everything in order, and then upload it with some stuff. But it's up to people to kind of fact verify together. I could become an administrator across the country, people that submit photos or video experiences, 6 people thumb it up, gets passed, put up into the thing. And so the leader, whoever starts it, inevitably doesn't have to exist after a certain amount of time.
RateMyCop.com is still online.
Yeah, right?
I don't know how well
I don't either. But they did it. They put all the names, and they did do that much.
As I understand, when I went there a few years ago, you could give them a rating and leave a comment. So, to some extent that exists.
Yeah, sure.
Have the city of Keene police made any use of the tank or any other heavy equipment they got from the feds?
Drones?
Not to my knowledge.
Not to your knowledge?
They use it for training, or people tell me a little.
You pulled the log, Peter? Was that James Cleveland?
JC did.
I think they brought it out to a couple suicide attempts so far. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, most of they have a log they're supposed to keep when it's used, so it's training and whatever. But I did ask a Keene police employee if it was brought to Boston when all that BS was going down, and he said to his knowledge it was not. But I don't know. It's not far. Kevin?
There's supposed to be a number of surveillance cameras going up in different cities. Has there been any attempt been made through the Freedom of Information Act to get any footage of what
cities?
Chicago, one place that have more than those. I don't know, Washington.
Yeah, we got something really weird that's real time going into some sort of fusion center. It's like in the works right now. Like,
Yeah, I know the Arizona
real-time track.
Arizona folks did some good stuff with like red light cameras. Are those ones you're talking about that are on like traffic lights, or even just in general purpose like New York City? Yeah, sure. Yeah, I don't know much about anything to like stop those, but I don't see.
Well, through the Freedom of Information Act, we get footage.
Oh.
Would be interesting. I was just wondering if anybody made any attempts that way.
We've tried to get. Are you talking about proactively or after the fact?
Well, once the footage is there. After
Yeah. Well, we've asked for footage of various police incidents, and if it ever shows the cops doing anything wrong, they're going to prevent you from seeing it. And in Texas, for example, every time that we've asked for video of an arrest, they defer to the Attorney General. They say that they can't release it because it will hinder their investigation. The Attorney General signs off on every single one.
So I guess I'm curious, is everybody in here would make an argument that the current institution of policing can be reformed or fixed? I'm kind of, okay. Do you want to make I don't know, I would be curious to hear like how you put forth that we best allocate our time, if that's the case.
To reform police?
If you think it's tenable.
In Asheville, North Carolina, there has been a coalition of citizens who've been interacting with the police department to have a discussion about the police activity to make for a more harmonious and peaceful environment. Now, some of that's been kind of sidetracked with people that are very pro-cops, so you have to make sure you have enough of your own people in there too. And there's been a period where they went actually out with the cops to see what was going on. So that was interesting.
Is that accountability, or is that just being nice to each other?
I'd say, yeah, like we heard the pointed to that the folks that work at Baltimore PD tend to be a little more aggressive in things. I saw this program they implemented that was called Coffee with a Cop, and it was funded from a grant from the DOJ. And they had these like promo videos where they're like, yeah, they hang out at McDonald's like once a month here at McDonald's, and it's great. I can talk to them, and it's like, what the hell? These people say I'm here to protect you, and you're wowed by being able to talk to them and that they actually might talk to you. I mean, obviously they're like selected folks and it's not really going to change. It's just like, I would just say it's like a window dressing thing myself.
Yeah.
All right, you guys gonna do your shirt? Do you want to see if people have suggestions on places?
Oh.
I don't know.
Sure, I don't know.
Can someone tell a story, maybe?
We got lots of stories. I don't know. We might have to narrow it down, but I don't know.
You got your video?
Are there any of these cameras in New Hampshire except for just normal traffic cameras?
I just noticed. I just moved to Laconia that there was like one camera on a traffic light, but I'm not sure if that's the norm.
I thought it was outlawed in the State House. I don't know, maybe it's just the city of Concord, but I know they wanted to put them in, and they were not allowed to.
Yeah, it's not a common thing that I see, but
Well, it comes down to the rule of evidence. The surveillance camera can't come in and testify.
Sure.
Is that surveillance cameras or
No,
just traffic
it was traffic, and they're not allowed to do that. I thought it was a New Hampshire state law, and I could be wrong. Guaranteed.
I believe there's a law that they can't use the camera as primary evidence except for total.
Yeah, I didn't know the one I noticed in Laconia might have just been because Bike Week was this past week, so they might have been trying to do some sort of trap for bikers or something, or.
Some cities will put surveillance in like parking garages. I haven't seen it in other public areas. We usually city parking garages. It's not uncommon. Sometimes off signs.
Is there anybody that has one of these Cop Block bracelets on in here?
Wah, wah, wah. There's some in the back.
You guys are welcome to take one of these.
I have one.
You guys are welcome to take one of these shirts up here.
I got one too.
Pete's giving away free shirts.
Yeah, there's a double XL, a girl's shirt, a large, I think. And there's a bunch of literature in the back and stickers. Y'all are welcome to grab them on the way out.
Pete, I have a question for you. Now, why your organization is Cop Block and yours is Cop Watch?
Oh yeah, we could talk about this.
You know, what is...
They hate each other. That's why they're sitting over there. Antonio and I are protecting.
We knew with it. We knew it was Cop Block. It would appear first in the search with the B over the W. You know.
I thought that too. Well, I think first thing we should pay tribute and respect and homage to the founding fathers and sisters that did this stuff in '66. The Black Panthers, the American Indian Movement did a 56 weekend tour and reduced the population of Native Americans in jail, and I think it was St. Paul. Minnesota, I think. Anyways, down like 75%. You got the Deacons for Defense, Brown Berets. You had a lot of different people that were going out in the streets and watching the police and advocating for each other. And a lot of them were killed. And there was a very active movement against people that were doing these things. So I think that's really important. This stuff didn't start with Cop Watch or So Cop Watch started in 1990, and it was just a proactive group of people that went out videotaping the police. Cop Block, I think, takes it to a different level. These guys are doing call-ins, and I just think I think that the different types of follow through are very imaginative and I think transcend just patrols. But I think that regardless of everything, I think we're all bound by our principles of what we're trying to do. Some people will call themselves Cop Watch or call themselves Cop Block and be an asshole or do a rant, and shit happens too. I mean, we are out there watching bad things. So, like I said, you can watch my videos and learn from my mistakes. I'd like you to. But yeah, we're out there to make situations better. We're nonviolent. And so...
I think having different names and brands, there's We Are Change as well and stuff, and so that not only helps to diversify the view, but if one is targeted, the other one will just thrive more. It's interchangeable. I mean, underneath my hoodie, I got my Peaceful Street shirt on right now.
It's when something happens with him, it goes on my something happens.
Code network and
we're
And I'd actually like to see this next year. I'd like to see us do, and we talked about this once last year, doing some joint action between all the police accountability groups on a national stage. We could have a national, just like
Film
they have
Police Day or something.
Exactly.
Right.
I was going to try to think of something really cool.
Sorry. Filming police is kind of cool.
Yeah, no.
Just depends on
because they have honor a cop day or something like that. Honor someone when Cop Watch is there or something. Who knows?
Yep.
I wanted your thoughts on this. I know it seems like more of a window dressing thing when you mentioned how the cop would come down to a McDonald's once a month or something like that, and it does seem kind of silly. But in my mind, it almost seems like there might be there could be an overall positive effect, because if you've got a cop trying to acclimate himself to his local community, maybe in my mind that might make him think twice later on before getting brutal with somebody in one of these situations. So I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Because I would love to see more stuff like that, honestly.
Well, for me, it would depend. In a Keene, that might work to the example you just laid out for us. And in Oakland, where Jacob's from, they're going to send the PR cops who are down behind a desk all day long, who are just the face to smooth things over, and Billy the Clubber isn't coming down. Well, I'm saying, they're all actually cops, they're all in a uniform. They all got the shiny badge.
I think the distinction is the fact that these folks are present and they're being paid by stolen money. So, are they really benevolent and doing, I've met with the guy who pushed me on the ground and dragged me out of court for wearing legal aid for wearing a hat. And he and I met a couple times at a Starbucks for a few hours in total. And it was good conversations, I thought. And I feel good, whatever. It was good, worth the time investment. But, conversely, there was a guy in Manchester who initiated our kidnapping and cagings. And he told me he'd meet with me when all the legal land stuff was done, but he has yet to do so after a few invites. So, I would say if someone's willing to meet you and willing to have a conversation and be at least somewhat open-minded and not just talk down to you or feel like I'm the authority and you're the civilian, if you're at these things and they're looked at as, these individuals are looked at as being they have the sole ability, I don't know. I guess it's the motivation of why they're there. It comes down to incentives again.
Well, I mean, those incentives certainly do matter, but I don't know. I certainly wouldn't advocate for reform. I'm an anarchist, but I don't know. I don't think. I think it might be a good thing not necessarily to count out policies like that or try to push for something like that.
Sure. The only reason why I don't really like talking to the police at all in general. Like, it's two reasons why I talk to the police. One is like to make a point through the videos and whatever else. Two is to like local police, like the city I live in and the sheriffs of that county. I talk to them and I try to be as nice to them as possible because, like we talked about earlier, you know, I want to have a positive relationship with them so that if they are ever having a negative interaction with me, that like, you know, it's like if your best friend is mad at you, it bothers you probably a little more than like the coworker you interact with like once a month, you know, and so you at least have that to where it may bother them a little more. But also because if the like FBI is ever called in or some crazy people, like I might get a heads up, I might get a hey, don't do that to him, and because it's the other way around too. So you never know when one might surprise you and speak out. And I also think that like it's kind of like my mentality now, but like local and focused, and so you know, but FBI guy or you know, undercover DTF agent, I think they're pretty far gone. And I don't, and I just speak of, for my own personal resource. It's like, if they want to come and engage, and like I ended up living next to a person in that profession, then great, I'll take all that time on anybody, you know, regardless of the profession. But if it's like a lost cause, then I just,
you're going to die someday, and you only have so many waking hours per day. You have to split that time between the people you love, making money, various forms of activism. And people have been talking to cops forever, and I haven't seen any change. And so each person's their own person. They can value their time separately, but I think talking to cops is a complete waste of my time. I'd rather make money. I'd rather work with activists, work with victims. I'm not interested in talking to cops.
Well, the kind of thing that I have in mind is more of a long-term kind of thing where you're trying to like acclimate these people into your daily lives. I mean, not necessarily you specifically, but like just the community in general. I mean, I think that could go a long way, but you know, granted, the incentives do matter.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately it's subjective. Like Antonio's saying, it's an opportunity cost. If you think it's a worthwhile investment of your time to go and have a conversation, by all means, go ahead and do it. But some of us might or might not.
Yeah, we got 36 rookies. I walk up to each one and, you know, give them a couple things.
Give them their first fuck the police.
Yeah, you know, that's really fun.
Hi, I'm Jacob. Fuck you.
I tell them to go bring their shoes home and scruff them up a little bit because they're looking a little clean. But that's no, I reach out when I first see them. I also am taking their pictures for that database. But I do. I think it's good to let them know that there's people out there that are going to be watching them, and that the institution's rotten to the core, and welcome to the fucked up job. You know, so
we'll be here.
Yeah. I actually moved into an apartment down in Austin last October, and when I was moving in, they have these laws like they can't tell you who your neighbors are because they're afraid that you're a racist or something. And so the only thing I could go by was the fact that the placemat next to mine had come back with a warrant. So I was like, sweet, this is gonna be great. So then once I moved in, I realized that the guy on the other side of me was actually an Austin Police Department cadet going through the academy. And I was like, damn it. So the first time he saw me, you know, we had a short conversation, and I let him know right away, like, I don't like the police. I think that they do a lot of harm. I think that it's an unjust, immoral institution, and I think that you could probably be doing better things with your time. But I was so polite with him and all that, and you know, after about 3 interactions, he just stopped talking to me. So
that's funny because I had a similar thing. I just moved into a place in Laconia, and like the one woman I think that lives in the other side of the building is dating a cop because he's got the thin blue line sticker on, and every day I leave for work I just want to stick a cop block sticker on his car, but I gotta respect property rights still. I look at it, I might just leave one under his windshield or something one morning.
And that placemat was actually, unfortunately, I found out he was actually a county prosecutor.
Oh God.
Oh. Yeah. That's irony.
There's no talking to that guy.
Anybody else got a few more questions?
Yeah, again, just emphasize, like, though a lot of us, those of us up here are pretty active with some of these groups involved, you know, which are, again, just decentralized. That's the important thing, you know, to underscore. This isn't just like a handful of people. Like Jacob said, it's like a lot of folks back in the day and a lot of folks going forward, and, you know, you guys as well. So whatever capacity, you know, you're most interested in, I would just encourage you to get involved in that. You know, whether it's this or whether it's like energy independence or growing food or whatever. Just let's make it happen.
Just curious, did you guys film the FBI at all?
Yep, I did last month. You can look up on wecopwatch.org. The feds are in town.
How did they react?
They're like soccer moms.
I recently filmed Philip Christiana. I recently filmed Philip Christiana with like Garrett, who's here, and Pete during Rich Paul's trial, and he was taking it like he was just striding out to the car like a football player. But I guess that it was also I filmed him a couple months prior to during a protest as well, and that day they were like near some troopers like around an unmarked car. And I remember I was walking to a gas station or something, and I remember seeing like 4 people chilling in an area that just didn't seem like everyone else was like way up the road a little ways. And so I filmed them, and I was wondering if anyone knew these people. And Jacob actually pointed out to me like a week ago that one of them was actually Philip Christiana. So it was like before we knew his name. I don't know if anyone had pictures of him that were like on the internet yet, but
Well, there's a certain amount of intuition as far as doing this. Like you have your own kind of
sure.
It goes up.
Well, what was funny is that same day,
Over here.
that was a gun protest that Brad Jardis and Tommy Mazingo did, and their whole spiel was that they may or may not be carrying guns because like they could have concealed carry that day, and people were like, "Well, you shouldn't bring a gun at all." And so like while I was filming the crowd and walking around filming this protest, I see this guy standing by himself in this hat with the Armour or Under Armour logo on it. And I'm like, "Are you a cop?" He's like, "Huh?" I'm like, "Are you a cop?" And he's like, "Yeah." and I just outed him. I'm like, this guy's an undercover cop. He has a gun, and like no one cares about that, But everyone's looking at these 2 people down here, and the whole time this guy's been walking amongst you. Yeah, after I got his name and badge number, I just outed him. So he just like scurries from the one side all the way over to where the other cops are. And he's like, I'm gonna stand over here now.
I think we need to make a compilation video of all the people with badges like going away after we're just like, yeah, that's not cool, man. This is what's up. Like,
it's funny.
Yeah, you gotta have fun at it.
Yeah.
That's true, and be safe. But I don't know about both of y'all, but I know the Cop Block stuff is down at site 13 and 14, which is the Laconia Free Market, other than the items that Pete has brought up here in the back. You guys are really close by.
Yeah, we're catty corner. We're in 27. Also, I wanted to give a plug for the Police Accountability Summit we're going to have in Austin on August 17th. So if any of you can make it to that, it's going to be a really awesome event. I think that Bobby Seale from the Black Panthers is going to be our keynote, so that's going to be pretty awesome.
But on my end, I'd have just check out the We Cop Watch. It's a very family-oriented website, and you guys are welcome to participate in it as well.
Yeah, and Jacob's crashing down by us at the 1340, so if you guys want to talk to him, or Pete's hanging out there too with his stuff. So any questions after this is done? I don't know how close we are. I just wanted to make sure we got some of that stuff in it.
if there's a guy named Danny Riley who's an Edna Lane Brown supporter, and in one of his most recent letters from his cage, he called firearms liberty tools and essentially encouraged people to pay attention, to what's going on and everything. So anyway, myself and Silver Dave, who some of you know, who does Sons of Liberty, we have a Liberty Tool raffle going on. So if any of y'all interested in maybe getting new Liberty tools, or 4,000 FRNs is the first prize, and there's a couple other lesser prizes, just head down by the Laconia Free Market. And the idea is, Silver Dave's going to liquidate that asset. He's an AR-15 and put it towards Sons of Liberty. And I have a bolt-action long-range 308 rifle that I'd put in a cop block, and we've been brainstorming some ideas. So if you guys have ideas, like you think, like on how to have the biggest impact, and say, we are definitely open. It's decentralized, and there's a symmetry of information. All of us have tacit knowledge, so I'm encouraging you guys to just reach out and share ideas if you think things could be done better or whatever, or just get involved however you can.
Anybody else have questions, or are you guys good? You guys want to? Nothing? Well, thank you all.
Sons, as I write you this letter, the days past and days yet to come, and the message of freedom, the message of freedom. I stand at the edge of the pages of history, and lessons unlearned. It feels like these pages are remaining unturned, but boys, it's no mystery. state of disaster. It was given to me in a similar state, but I woke up so late in the game, now spiraling faster. 'Cause freedom's the answer, so what is the question? Resist the advances of force and aggression.